Wow, I got really passionate. Anyway. Hey, hello, my name is JoJo and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, welcome. Recognizing burnout can be really hard, and overcoming or trying to recover from burnout can be even harder. It's like, no matter how hard you try to keep a balanced life, at some point something just gets in the way and suddenly you realize you're exhausted and like nothing's going right and you feel like you're literally falling apart. And sometimes you don't even realize that. Like, there are a lot of people who, me included at one point, didn't really know what burnout was and are just like still going and continuing to work through it and push themselves and just like work themselves to the bone because they either feel like what they're feeling is their fault and something's wrong with them, or they just feel like they have no choice but to keep working. And honestly, I blame I blame capitalism and hustle culture and the freaking productivity vultures who make you feel like if you're not working 24/7, then you're just like a waste of space on the planet. Like, screw them, screw the productivity vultures, screw hustle culture, just like screw them all. Wow, I got really passionate. Anyway, yeah, as a grad school student or just like a student on a whole, and also someone who has worked in corporate America, I know burnout very well. Burnout is not a stranger to me. In fact, burnout is kind of like my super toxic ex that I got rid of and yet somehow keeps finding their way back to me. That's what burnout feels like for me. But over the years, I have kind of gotten better at recognizing the signs of burnout in myself and kind of knowing when I need to start taking the steps necessary to like dead that. Like, stop it in its tracks and start putting myself back on the right, road to making myself a priority. Like, I don't care what anyone says, burnout is not normal. It is not something you should strive for. It is not an accomplishment. It is not a goal that you should be reaching towards. Like, it's not okay, but it's also like not your fault. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you need rest, and that is absolutely okay. So today I'm just going to be going through some of the common signs of burnout just to be on the lookout for within yourself, and also some of the things that I do that kind of help me take a step back and reorient myself and like help me recover in a way. Keep in mind that this is not meant to be like a one-size-fits-all video. I'm speaking strictly from my own experience, which could be very similar, but also very different from things that you or anybody else could be experiencing. So please think about yourself first. You know yourself, you know your body, you know your mind, you know all of that. I don't. So yeah. Okay, so some signs of burnout. So number one, your sleep quality is suffering. This is, for me, usually one of the first signs that I'm experiencing burnout. My sleep quality is already pretty crap. But I know that when my sleep quality suddenly gets progressively more shitty, and like is consistently that way for like days or even weeks at a time, something just isn't right. Number two is if you are feeling more anxious than is usual for you. This usually goes hand in hand with sleep quality for me. When I'm experiencing burnout, like my anxiety level skyrockets, and then that just negatively impacts my sleep, which then makes me more anxious, which then further impacts my sleep, and then it just like creates this perpetual cycle until I do something about it. And I made that slight distinction of being more anxious than what is normal for you because baseline levels of anxiety are different for everybody. For someone who has never experienced like chronic anxiety before, noticing if you're suddenly feeling anxious all the time might be really easy for you. For someone like me who feels anxious damn near 24/7, it's gonna be a little bit harder to notice changes in that because I'm kind of always at like a baseline level of anxiety that's just constantly there. And if you're also someone who's like that, then I can imagine that it's probably pretty similar for you. Number 3 is that your health might have changed in some way. This is usually when I'm like, okay, yeah, no, something's wrong. I wouldn't consider myself someone who gets sick very easily or very often. And so if after a period of having really high anxiety and not sleeping well, I also suddenly wake up with a migraine and a stuffy nose and a sore throat and body aches, then I know that like, okay, this is really not normal for me and I need to rest my body. Noticing really sudden and unusual changes in your health is really important. And this goes for every aspect of your health, not just your physical health. It's just really important to notice those changes in your health overall, especially if you work in a very burnout prone environment. Number 4 is that your work quality is suffering. No matter what kind of work you do, everyone has a baseline for the quality of work that they produce and that they are used to producing. If you notice that suddenly the quality of the work that you're producing is just not up to par or not what you expect of yourself, or you notice that you're just caring less about what you're producing and you're not really caring about the final outcome, especially if it's something that you love doing, if you suddenly realize that you are no longer giving a crap about what you put out, that's a major sign that you're probably overworked. And number 5, your social relationships are struggling. Everyone's social life fluctuates depending on what they're doing, how busy they are, what kind of mood they're in. It just does that naturally from day to day, right? But if you are someone who is usually pretty social on a regular basis and you're suddenly realizing that you never want to hang out with your friends because you're too worried about work, or you're just too exhausted, or you're just suddenly really irritable and everything and everyone around you is just getting on your nerves and you just can't stand to be around people anymore, it's probably time to take a step back and reset. And I also kind of want to add that same like what's unusual for you caveat here, because social relationships are also pretty specific to individuals. Like if you're not necessarily a super social person, then this might not apply to you, but nevertheless, it's something to be on the lookout for. Okay, so the ways that I kind of try to recover from burnout once I realize that that's what I'm going through. So number 1, I take a break. One thing that I've gotten into, and I did like a whole video on this, is calendar blocking. And when I calendar block, I always make sure to schedule in break times into my days. And I stick to those times as closely as possible. But usually when I'm going through burnout, I will tend to realize that I have stopped taking my breaks. And so I will force myself to take these breaks no matter what I'm working on. And during these breaks, I don't do anything work or school related at all. I may just sit there for 10 minutes and breathe. I may get up and get some water, maybe like walk through the hallways of whatever building I'm in and, you know, get some blood pumping through my legs, but I don't do work. If I take a longer break, that's like 30 minutes or an hour, I will probably eat something, I'll call my mom. But regardless, I make sure that my breaks are actual breaks. Number 2, I reevaluate. So once I realize that I'm going through burnout, I will usually try to figure out what is causing it, like primarily what is causing it. Obviously everything I'm doing is contributing to it, but trying to figure out like what is the main cause of it. And I'll kind of ask myself questions like, did I take on an extra project lately that maybe was adding too much to my plate? Do I have a deadline coming up that I'm having a really hard time meeting? Am I trying to do everything myself instead of delegating it to team members who are there to help me? Basically, I reevaluate my commitments and get rid of anything I can get rid of. It doesn't always feel great, but I gotta do it for my own well-being, and it helps. Number 3 is I cut myself off, literally. In addition to reevaluating my commitments, I also reevaluate my daily schedule, and I just like adjust it as I see fit or as needed. For example, after last semester and kind of reflecting on how long some of my days were and how exhausted I was at the end of every day, something new that I've tried to commit to this semester is making sure that I start winding down from work at 6 p.m. every day, with the exception of the nights that I have class. That's a story for a different day. But yeah, I have started doing this as a way to avoid accidentally overworking myself. It's not foolproof, but I'm trying. So I don't completely like shut down at 6 p.m., but after 6 p.m., I tend to avoid doing anything or any kind of work that could very easily cause me to disregard my own boundaries. So like, I don't check my emails after 6 p.m. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, checking my email is kind of like a rabbit hole. I will check one email and then that will trigger a memory of something that I had to do, and then I'll start working on something, and then that will trigger another memory of something I had to do, and then I'll start working on something. It's bad. So I just don't check my email. I also avoid as much as possible scheduling meetings after 6, and I don't usually start like new projects or new assignments after 6 p.m. Instead, I use the rest of the day after 6 to just finish up anything that I may have started earlier in the day or started the day before. And then I have a hard cutoff at 8 p.m. Again, unless I have class. But if I'm not in class, hard cutoff at 8 p.m. Like, I'm done, period. I don't check nothing. I put everything away and I'm done. Like, and then like, hopefully I'm in bed and asleep by 11. That's it. So yeah, I have decided this semester to like set some hard cutoff times for myself and stick to them. Again, not foolproof, because like I said, I have classes at night that are mandatory for me to attend that I'm not fond of. But otherwise, it's been working pretty well. Okay, number 4 is I take a day off. There's not much to say here. I usually reserve this for when like my burnout is really, really bad. I will force myself to take a day off and just not do anything. And on those days, I will quite literally just lay in bed for 90% of the day. I might do something that I enjoy doing, like I really like baking, so I might bake something, or I'll have a movie night for myself and just eat some popcorn or something, but I literally don't do anything. That's it. And that's usually like enough for me. The last thing I could mention is that just like I might go out with friends for a night, and that, again, it's not much to say there. It's a way to pull myself away from work and just enjoy myself. So yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know that there are some other things that people have suggested to me to deal with burnout, like journaling or, you know, talking to people. Those things don't necessarily help me because a lot of my burnout stems from the things that I'm actually doing in my day-to-day life, not just stress. So just talking to someone about it or journaling about it doesn't usually help. But if those things help you, then all the better. Do them as well. But these are some of the things that are most helpful for me, and hopefully they're also helpful for you. So on that note, thank you for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I truly appreciate it. Leave me a comment down below if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos. As always, like, comment, subscribe, click that little notification button so you don't miss my next upload, and I'll see you in my next one.